So now we will hear Dr. Heller on the pages.
There are these curious young fellows here called the pages. Now, what is a page? A page is a future knight in the medieval household. These are the apprentices of the greater offices of life. So when we are dealing with persons, if the pages as court cards relate to an actual individual, to a person, then we generally have children or young people, youth. Otherwise, again, we are dealing with sort of not entirely new, not entirely fresh developments, as for instance an ace would be, but something that is there already and that is growing and developing, but is still in the early phases of development. I'll just take this one out of the sequence that I used before. The Page of Cups, to me, at least in the weight deck, is a very interesting fellow. He stands there on the shore of the ocean in some medieval page dress, and he holds the instrument of his office, the cup. But in this case, heavens, out of the cup, there seems to be looking or jumping a fish. To have fish come out of your chalice or out of your cocktail glass or whatever is not a generally desired and welcomed event. But what we have here is a development or a person through whom a certain development takes place where emotionally charged surprises are likely to take place. So with the Page of Cups there is always a surprise element, at least a potential surprise element. Look out for surprises with people like that or with development like that. They're exciting, they're emotionally stimulating, but there are surprises. The Page of Wands doesn't hold such surprises. It's very steady. It holds the wand and looks up toward the sky. So once again we have a development that is growing toward intuitively inspired heights. All it needs is time and nourishing, and it will grow into an important spiritual development. The Page of Swords is sort of aspiring to be the kind of wild fellow that we found in the Knight of Swords, but he's not there yet. He's just learning how to swing his sword. With Page of Swords, incidentally, I very frequently find the element of annoyances that take place. So you have a Page of Swords come up in your reading very often, annoying developments. Not terribly powerful, not the kind that will hurt you seriously, but just sort of jab you. Things don't go smoothly. There are always some kinds of annoyances, and at times also annoying people. People who have or who are about to have or about to be associated with unpleasant or annoying children generally have Pages of Swords there too. Page of Pentacles carries the instrument of his office in a very serene manner, and here we have for instance, if you have a small business that has a potential of growth, you have any kind of an undertaking that has a physical or an artistic element, but that is still in the early stages. Page of Pentacles is likely to come up and will indicate that the situation has a good promise in terms of its physical development, financial rewards, and so forth. It's not a big thing yet because it's not fully grown, but it is growing in that particular direction. With the pages, we are down at the lowest portion of the tree. We are in Malkuth, where we have the growing development of the higher archetypal forces as they now express themselves at the physical level.
Okay, Allison, unmute.
Thank you, Brian. So with the Page of Wands, I Generally, I always seem like he's newly examining something. He's taking a fresh look at this. He's appreciating this. There's a sense of newness and of re-examination and of expectation, things like that when I see the page. If this were in a reading that were like the overall card and the Page of Wands were there, I might say, well, you shouldn't draw any big conclusions at this point, because what you're dealing with is the beginnings of a situation. You're just getting to know it. There's going to be things that come out of it, but right now it looks optimistic. It looks good, something along those lines. If this came up in the advice against, then I would say there may be something that you're not seeing here. You're looking at it perhaps innocently, and there needs to be something more of a critical examination, perhaps something like that in the advice against. Other people will be able to augment this and give it more depth. The fieriness of the salamanders there. Magnus pointed out in some of our past sessions that these salamanders are not completed. They don't have that Ouroboros head-eating snake, tail-eating snake completion. They're open-ended, so maybe that's there's more energy and less completion that would make sense within this. And then we can see that dry and hot kind of background, and certainly the predominance of the oranges and warm colors. If this were in the advice pursue, I would say this is not a bad idea. You should probably go after this. You should check it out. It's something worth considering, and it's all kind of very much interpreted from the nature of the pictures on this one. I'm not very particularly insightful with the pages, and I look forward to other people's contributions. Thank you. I'm going to hand off to Magnus. Magnus, would you mind picking it up from here?
Yes, thank you, Alison. I look at this card and I see for the first, I see the salamanders that you have already mentioned, but they are even more uncompleted here than we have seen in the two other cards. In one, we saw them as completed, and in another, in the night we looked at the last time, we saw some of them as completed. And I can see it's one of them that is completed here, almost completed, I think. But it's like there is something in the beginning here. There is something, some power that is growing. And also when I look at him, he is looking very much like Mercury. I see Mercury in him, or Hermes, if I look at him, and I also see the red feather, and that is also the red feather on the Fool, I believe, because there are a feather there also. So there is some significance here. And I also see the pyramids or the heights in the background, and they are on the other side that they were in another court card. I don't remember, it's a queen, I think. And this is, if we are looking triangular in the Tree of Life, this is the triangle of Earth, and it is fire on Earth then. So it is a stable or a based fire that is burning here. It's not burning in a higher realm yet. It is starting to burn there, I think. It's an inspiration to develop something. And if we are looking at, I think I talked about this the last time also, the knights are in Tiferet in Golden Dawn, and they have the path directly to Keter. But this page, he has to go through Yesod, and there is the intuition, there is the astral plane. So he's learning about that, I think, to reach higher. And looking at the color, it's a lot of yellow, golden yellow, so that is Tiferet, I believe. And it's a lot of balance in his search, I think. And as Alison already has said, in a reading, I think it is a message that you are starting out of something and you have a lot of energy to fulfill that, and you should go on if it is in that position, this card. And there is also some power because there is the red color in the Gebura Sephira, and that's Mars, and that's the power here, but it's not so much of it because it is more orange, it's more yellow. So it's more of a genuine search, I think, without having all the power. It's a processing of learning also. I think I am stopping there, and I think I'm going to Christina, if you want to take on.
Okay, I can't add too much with with both of you, other than whenever I get this card whenever this pops up, I always have a good feeling with it. And I don't know why, but it's always like a messenger of good news. You're going to hear something good, and this is the first time where I'm really paying attention to the colors on this one, where the orange, the red, the combination, where there's mental, a lot of thinking to it as well. But other than that, Lana, I'll send it to you.
Thank you, Christina. I think it's all been said. The only thing that I want to add, I called him the apprentice to the magician. You know, as someone who is just, starting his spiritual journey. So there's lots of excitement and surprises, and he is just learning. And again, it's I feel there's lots of imagination involved with this card, and optimism. It's I see this as a very kind of a happy card, and there's a potential. So I think that's all I have to say. How about I'll pass this to Jeriel?
Thank you. I wanted to answer one of your questions there, Magnus. The pyramids appear on the other side on the Knight of Wands. And I want to say a couple of things basically about the pages. As we talked about last time when we were talking about the knights, in the Golden Dawn system, these are called princes. The knights are, and the pages are princesses, which makes when the combination with the kings and queens, kind of the royal family. And the comment by Isabel Kliegman about this is that she sees the pages at the bottom of the tree as having just received the symbol of the particular suit from the ace at the top of the tree. And they are kind of in amazement at the reception of these incredible gifts that the suit is represented as being presented in the aces by the hand of God reaching out to them. Another thing about I'm going to share a couple of things out of Robert Wang's book, The Kabbalistic Tarot. And he says that the princes in divination often represent the coming and going of an event or person, and the princesses, which would be the pages, often represent approval or disapproval of some matter. And I told you before, he has very little to say, Wang does, about um, the knights and the pages in the weight deck. And here's his comment here. He says, one must finally comment on the weight, pages, and knaves of the Marseille deck, both of which are exoteric. Insofar as these cards symbolize the bride of Microprosopus, they are understood to be female because the he is final. The he final is the inferior mother. And then he comments, Waite knew this, and in representing a young men was perhaps avoiding an idea which he considered to be an esoteric secret. I don't know if I agree with Wang on that, but he's very knowledgeable on these kind of things. And I had one other thing that I wanted to share. No, that one will come up later because it has specifically to do with the cups and the fish. But here we had the Page of Wands, so we were in intuition, and as Dr. Heller mentioned, these are young, immature individuals that they've just received this gift, according to Isabel Kliegman, and they're kind of pondering it. What is the significance of this? So when we first start getting some idea of that we have an intuition, it's an amazing and mysterious things. And I see this page looking at this wand with a good deal of wonder. This facility here that gives you some sort of a feeling or a sense of something. And I see a bit of awe in him, and he's holding it up above his own head. So he's looking up at it. And again, the salamanders representing fire, which is the element associated with wands. And I think that the feather in his cap also has a kind of a look of a lick of flame. So I think that's another representation of fire. And I was doing some reading about the salamanders, and apparently the reason that they are said to represent fire is, unlike like desert lizards, which are very dry, salamanders are wet, which is kind of funny to think about something that's wet symbolizing fire. But one of the things I read said that they had a tendency to crawl into damp wood to maintain their moisture, and that sometimes when people would throw such wood onto the fire, the salamander would want to get out of there because it was too hot. So they were seen emerging from fire, and so that's kind of the ancient mythology around those. And again, as we see the pyramids here, which suggest mystery, like the mystery of ancient Egypt and that sort of thing. So that's what I would have to add to this part of the discussion. And I'm just trying to think who we have here who hasn't talked yet. How about you, Michael?
Sounds good. Everybody had great stuff. I don't really have much else to say. The only thing that I noticed while looking at the card is he's staring up, and so of him being on Malkuth, possibly looking up to Kether, kind of looking towards that top Sephiroth. And if you look at the way the pyramid is and the negative space between his leg and the wand and his hand, it's almost like an upward, a very acute small arrow pointing upwards, kind of showing that path up and that desire to go up, and kind of maybe that first pyramid being that first stage of maybe initiation of him kind of getting a secret and possibly moving on to a higher higher will or higher desire. So that's all I had. Janelle, did you want to add anything?
I wanted to add
Oh,
something.
sorry, Christina. Yeah, go ahead.
Just, I noticed in all the other cards, there's a lot of blue. This one has just a small, tiny line of blue. And usually that's associated with emotions. But this one, it's kind of like a contrast where the salamander is supposed to, there's no water associated to it, as the other cards have more blue in it. So I just noticed that, and I was wondering what you guys thought about that.
Can you hear me? Is it good? Okay. I have never worn these headphones before, so I don't know how it works. You guys can hear me okay? Okay. I'm new to tarot reading. Pretty much just really started to get into it over the past year. So the symbolism you guys talked about was great. I didn't know that thing about salamanders and the fire. I had no idea why salamanders were associated with fire. That was a cool story. What I like about this card is it reminds me of when I go on a walk with my 3 to 5 year old children, and they find the stick in the woods on the path, and they have this stick, and it's like he's holding it the same way. They're just like, this is the stick. I'm now the wizard of this forest because I found this stick. And it's just, it changes their whole perception of the hike. It can change their whole day. Sometimes I let them carry the stick home and keep the stick for a while. They love the stick, and the way they're looking at it is even like they take a couple of like the pieces of bark off or a couple of leaves, they kind of fashion it to their liking. So yes, it's an object found in nature, but they're also creating something out of it. Like, this is a thing I created, and how much more do I love it now that I've created it? And so it's a very positive symbol, and it makes the day great. And if you take the stick away from them, then they kind of feel like they're just stuck in the desert without their stick, and that's not a good day. That's my interpretation.
And Angela, are you there? Oh, I heard somebody drop out, and I guess it was Angela. Well, I will go. If I were to take up the art, it wouldn't be much of an art, but if I were to venture into painting, well, then I would certainly be a page. Prefer to say that than princess, but they're always kind of the juniors. The apprentice was a good word, and so like the Page of Wands would be someone who is seeking to have greater vision, does not have the capabilities of the let's say the high priestess, who not only has a tremendous vision but sees more than should actually be revealed. The truth might be too big a burden on many, so there's quite often where high priestess is not is only selectively revealing. But so they, just like with all the pages, they're all rather junior, and but this is the promise of growing and developing and getting a deeper intuitive and spiritual insight. That is it's rare that you would find a negative meaning for this. It would only be in a reading where perhaps you're not qualified to be taking that approach. The rest of the cards may well be offering another alternative to get what you need, what the reading would be recommending for a person. But with that, I would open the floor to general banter. How about this card?
I'd like to add on. Janelle, I wanted to thank you for that interpretation. The Wizard of the Forest is going to stick with me on this one because I really think that you captured something very essential in this card, which is that childlikeness, that appreciation, and that ability to project your imagination into something and make it what you want. So all of that is very possible for this card to carry. I wanted to mention, Jeriel, that you were talking about the Kliegman book, which I reordered because I gave it to somebody and it went away. This Tarot and the Tree of Life, which is a very excellent book. She takes an approach, or she wants us to consider in this book a different approach to how the correspondences are to each of the olams in the Tree of Life. And she is arguing or suggesting that we consider that the pages actually are in the top with the initial receiving of the attribute of the suit, and then it goes through to the knights, and then to the queens, and then finally in Malkuth, the kingdom is where the kings reside, where they need that mastery to be able to handle it and things like that. What she talks about is very persuasive, but then maybe it's just the universality of the symbol to be able to accommodate all this different thinking and to be able to allow us to expand our thinking and to project meaning. But anyway, it's worth thinking about her approach to the Kabbalah. It's that book is pretty cool. So it had me thinking last night, although I'm only like halfway into that chapter, so I haven't captured it all. But I do want to mention that because it does offer a different interpretation to how we see that emanation of energies and the cascading of energies as starting perhaps with the receiver and then going into the development and then into the nurturing and the and then my terminology is off because my Kabbalistic is sketchy, but anyway, I found it worth an interesting consideration. And when Jeriel was talking, it reminded me of that, since he also has been checking out this book. Thank you.
It's interesting, Alison, because it's like the Malkuth is in Keter as Keter is in Malkuth.
Yes, exactly.
So that.
Just wanted to say a comment because I don't remember seeing trees, multiple trees of life where one begins and where one ends, there is another one begin.
Yeah.
So at one level, it's a Malkuth and then it's becoming Keter again.
That's the snake eating its own tail, perhaps. You kind of loop around. The ending is the beginning. So maybe that's our thing.
The classic
thought, Allison.
What's that?
I just had that very same thought of that's the snake with his tail and his mouth, and it shows how all of this is a circle. That's something we should keep in mind with all kinds of models that we have. That those are ways of being able to organize something in our human consciousness.
Our limited consciousness, yes.
Yes, our limited consciousness. People sometimes take that kind of stuff too literally, and in actual reality, everything is smushed together. It's not neatly arranged the way it is in diagrams. And when I was working a lot with theosophical groups, and they have the 7 planes of existence, and I once gave a talk at a meeting of those, the title of which is the 7 planes of existence are not a stack of pancakes.
Even the word plane is a limitation in terms of it implies that 2-dimensionality. And we're already like so many dimensions beyond that, that our conception is limited. It's limited by our analog brain or whatever our brain is. So it's kind of like the tree of life could be like a Mobius strip that flips in on it. You know, it kind of comes around on itself because, you know, look at the universe, look at every one of us is our own universe. And so it's our conception of what is limited by our software.
One of the authors that really affected me early in my esoteric ventures was Alan Watts, and he talks about what he calls reification, where a symbol gets mistaken for being the thing it symbolizes, and that can really lead to a lot of misunderstanding, especially when you start using your intuition through processes such as meditation.
I also think about the pictures with the tree of life, and each sephira is it's the own tree of life. It's a tree of life in each sephira, and then it is all the 4 worlds also, and you have it like a fractal. It's just going on.
Okay, back to the fractals. Very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one thing I see that I haven't seen before in this card, and I don't know why it is so, but the hat looks like Saturnus. It's almost like Saturnus. I don't know if it is a connection there, if White had something there he wants to show but hide.
And it's interesting too that is the bit of blue that's in this card.
Yeah.
And it's sitting right on top of his head.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be some sort of a warning that when you feel like you're in your intuition, you've gone to your higher place, emotion comes with you. Emotion is always there. It doesn't go away. You can change your concentration on something, but your entire system is always working all the time. And so I think that helmet, and it's a helmet, which is something that you wear for protection. So and a lot of times that's what our emotions are doing. Our subconscious is trying to protect us, and our emotions are trying to protect us. If it's scary, and we should be cautious of this because we're frightened. You know, I hadn't thought of that before, but this is another example of how these discussions percolate among the several minds that are at work here.
I see it also, if it is Saturn, then it is the Sephira Bina, and it is form. And I see it that you should reach Keter by form. This intuition must be formed in something creative or something, because if it isn't, it's just a chaos and it doesn't lead to anything.
All right, we better move along. Shall we visit the young Page of Pentacles?
Okay, so the Page of Pentacles, again, he is in receipt of this new object of the earth, and there he is on the earth. And when I see the Page of Pentacles, it usually reminds me of some kind of a new endeavor, some kind of a new information, something concrete that needs to be handled. And the Page of Pentacles, like all the Pentacles, things take time. So this could be the beginning of a new little business, some kind of project, something that's taking place out in the real world. if this were to come up in divination as the summary card of a reading, then I would say that you're probably just, these are early days, as they might say in England. This is the beginning of a project. You're seeing it at its seed, so to speak, to be planted in the earth there. We can see the little flowers and stuff. So things are, it's a very potentially productive endeavor. The face of the page also has that kind of gaze of appreciation, or very kind of entranced with the object. The only one who's not looking at their object is the Page of Swords, which is interesting. We can talk about that. So he's concentrating on this, and so this person is concentrating on this new endeavor. So if it's the summary cards, I'm going off on a tangent. The summary card in a reading would be that this is new. It needs to be supported. It's worth pursuing and following up. And it looks like it's going to be taking up a lot of your practical energies. If this was in the advice against position, then I would say this may not be the thing that you want to be embarking upon at this time. This project, there's something about it that you may not be aware of or may not be seeing. It may be that your level of maturity, that's another aspect of the pages, is less maturity than the other cards. So it may be that if this is in the advice against position, that the level of experience that you have as a page, or that you have relative to this project that we're talking about, is not sufficient to manage it, or you're seeing it like a Pollyanna and you're not seeing it realistically, something along those lines. So if this were in the advice pursue, then I would say this looks like something that you do want to get involved in. It looks like something that could house and allow your creative powers to make something manifest. And it might be a real good business to consider lending your support to, or owning, or whatever. So those are some things that come to mind. I do see that, like the others, except for the Page of Cups, although it has its own little watery peaks, there are peaks in the distance. And so I think that also implies the idea of pathway, of that you have a ways to go before you make it up to the top of the mountain. That also supports that kind of growing maturity versus full maturity. So anyway, Magnus, do you want to take it from here?
Thank you, Alison. I look at him, and I have looked at him for some time now, and I see something I haven't seen before, and that is he is looking at that pentacle, and that pentacle is with one top up, so it's a spiritual pentacle, and we have seen that before in cards, but then when we are looking the way they are looking, it's often looking the other way around. They are looking at the materialistic pentacle. And he is looking at the same pentacle that we are looking at, because it's the spiritual. So he is going in his spiritual mind in some way. And then I also see the colors, the orange and the green, and the Sephira Hod and Netcha, and the balance between them. And then the red on the top of it, that's the Sephira Gebura. And I see more and more that Waite is using the color in the cards, because if you are looking at the Sephiras with that color and you draw lines between them, path, you see they go as a triangle always, or almost always. And this goes between those three Sephiras, but it also, the secret is it's from Gebura down to Netcha, it's passing the Tiferet Sephira. So it is a lot of Tiferet here, because it's all the yellow there in the background. And I also see it like the light is coming down in some way. It's very much yellow. So it's like the light is shining on him, because if we are looking at the card, there are not so much light in the rest of the scene. And there are also there, if you see, Brian has shown the tree here. So if you see here, it's Netsha, and you see it's Hod. The green is Netsha, the yellow is Hod, and the red is Gebura. And then you have Tiferet in between. If you draw a line here, you have a triangle. So Waite is using this in many colors on the chord cards and also in other cards in the minor arcana to show something in the tree. He's drawing triangles in the path with the tree, and often they are passing through Tiferet, but we don't see it, but it is there if we draw the lines. So I think he's saying something with that. But if you are looking at the card, the yellow light is from the top down. But then if you are looking at the scene of the card, at the bottom of the card, there are not so much light there. There is a lighter yellow. So it seems that the light is above, coming from above and going down. And then you have, like Michael has talked about, the mountains also being the initiation or something. And this is a blue mountain in the background. So it's also something about some form of initiation or growing or something. And then there are all the trees also, and they are in a straight line on the other side. So I think it's interesting because I haven't seen those things before. But as Alison already has said, in a reading, it is like it is a start of something, and you have a help from above in some way, but you also must balance this thought and the creative thought, the green there with the Venus and the Mercurian energies and the Mars energies, that triangle there that I talked about. I think it's enough for me. Thank you. And Yariel, you can go.
Okay. This, I think one of the most interesting things on this card is the position of his hands. And he's holding them in this position of supplication, of awe and receiving. And the pentacle isn't really in his hand. It's almost like floating above it. And what I get most from this card, looking at the landscape with the lush trees and with plowed fields behind him, and off in the distance, as was mentioned, the mountain of initiation. I see this card suggesting just being in awe of the beauty of creation, of the world that we have with the land and all the lushness and the promise of the sustaining nourishment that's going to come up in the plowed field in the background. That all that yellow is certainly suggestive of the sixth Sephiroth, Tippereth, which is beauty, and the pinnacle symbol is just kind of drawn in there. It's the exact same color, and right at the top of the tree level, it really appears to me not so much a lighter yellow as it is white, which would be suggestive again of Kether, the crown, and so I think maybe there's a suggestion there that God, the creator, whatever you want to say, is right there close to what the creation that we're blessed to be part of I do see it as very idealistic. That's the way that this looks to me, and I would think that it would say that the prospects for whatever this new beginning that's involved in the querent's life is has all the prospects for possible success. And of course, whenever that's the case, one of the things that as a negative sign would be again complacency, not following through, but just kind of letting things happen. And that's what I have to ask. And let me see who I can pass it off to. How about Christina?
Yeah, I would like to add, when I get this card, a lot of times it comes up with group work, that you're starting a business, you're starting something, an activity of some type, and you're dealing with groups, with it's gainful. However, looking at it, you've got the gainful wealth. However, again, I want to say what you had said about it being, if you just imagine it, it's not going to happen just with that. You have to cultivate it. And when also, let's see, what else do I pick up with that? You have it. It's, that's what it was. I was thinking about, I had picked up with the differences between when you're manifesting, when you're working towards something. Sometimes you have to be aggressive to it. Other times you have to be gentle. And I usually advise at this point, or I'll pick up, depending on who I'm reading with, that sometimes with the group that you're dealing with, you have to be gentle with it. It's a relationship where you have to approach it not aggressively, assertively, in other words. So I just want to add that part to it. Who hasn't gone? I don't have everyone's name up here. I'm still learning everyone's name. Lana, you want to go next?
Yes, sure. When I look at pages in general, it reminds me of coming of age. And as someone mentioned, I think it was Magnus in the previous card of page ones, the head reminds him of a Saturn. So the half through the cycle of Saturn, that's about age 13, 14. And when kids are becoming teenagers, and in many traditions, including Judaism, it's also a time of initiation into adult life. There's a bar mitzvah, there's a ceremony, and so it's also a time when when kids, they're still kids, but they feel like they're already adults, and they're telling you, don't tell me this, parents, I'm an adult now, I know what to do. So when I look at this card, and I see this coin, to me, this is when someone is given responsibility. And it's also could be a situation when a young person gets promotion, and they all get excited that they're the boss now, right? But with this also comes responsibility. It's addressing that, Saturnian part of initiation. So you are becoming an adult, when you can take responsibility. I think that's all I have. And I think I would pass this to Michael.
Thank you. Just a couple things that I noticed when looking at the card. The background was kind of interesting to me, with the field and the trees that almost look like a orchard back there. It's almost like the beginning of, the beginning of a farmstead, but we see a lot of buildings in the pinnacles, because with pinnacles we're talking about earthly things and maybe industry and things like that. But there's no building here, so it's something that's yet to be built, or something that's possibly coming in the future. You've started to maybe get things out of the material world because of the plowed field and the orchard, but nothing really is to fruition. And you can kind of see that with the flowers by his feet, which are kind of small and not formed very well. And if you look closely, and maybe it's just me, but on his right foot there, it kind of looks like there's a weed there. So it's almost like echoing what you guys said earlier about, we have to be careful and manage what we are doing appropriately, and taking care of things. Maybe we need to notice, maybe the weeds in our field in order to pick them to make things grow sufficiently. But yeah, that's all I had to add. Janelle, do you want to go?
Yeah, to add on to that, the symbolism of the trees and the field and the mountain form a sort of trine behind the figure. And to me, it looks like he's emerging from this like forest. So like he's emerging from this very wild, unstructured state, towards, and his body's facing sort of the more cultivated, structured idea or place, sort of placed ahead of him in the future. But this person is kind of wandering out into a field while sort of pondering what to do, or maybe daydreaming, or maybe just wasting time before acting.
Thank you, Janelle. How about Jeriel?
I already went on this one. And
Okay.
obviously Janelle's children were drawn by her actually being the one talking.
Well, any round table exchange before we head to our grumpy young man, the Page of Swords?
What's the secret name of that card, Jerry? From the Wang book.
I am not sure, because oh yes, he would be talking about that with regard to he's going to be talking to it in terms of princesses, of course.
But he'll still call it the Lord.
Yeah. This one is Pentacles, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Then we can back up to the wands as well. Get them all.
Yeah.
Like do them all four while we're here.
Well, unfortunately, he puts these in different places. Okay, here we go.
Are they in that chart?
The Pentacles is Princess of Echoing Hills, Rose of the Palace of Earth, Princess and Empress of the Gnomes, Throne of the Ace of Pentacles. And he says it is Earth on Earth, the personification of specific Earth and the world of primal Earth. I had one other. What, did you want to hear all four of them then?
Well, if they're handy, we might as well do them all now.
Princess of Wands, Princess of the Shining Flame, the Rose of the Palace of Fire. So apparently there's the Rose of the Palace of, and then followed by the related element. princess and empress of the salamanders, and then throne of the ace of wands. So it's also throne of the ace of whatever their suits are. Cups, the princess of the water and lotus of the palace of the floods, princess and empress of nymphs and undines. I'm not quite sure what undines are. Throne of the ace of cups. And then what did I not cover? Swords, right?
Yeah.
Princess of the rushing winds, lotus of the palace of air, prince and princess of the sylph and sylphides, throne of the ace of swords. And I want to add another thing, and maybe I'm doing it prematurely in this discussion, but it's gonna kind of segue into the page of swords as well. Both of those have this very unusual foot posture. They're standing very solidly on their left leg, and their only their toe is touching on their right leg, like they're about to go somewhere. They're not firmly standing as both the pages of wands and cups are. And it's also interesting that both of those are wearing unmarked tunics, whereas the pages in the wands and the cups are wearing tunics that are decorated with the symbolism of their elements, fire and water. So those are interesting things to notice as well.
I just want to add something that the undines, I believe those are the magical creatures, just like salamanders and gnomes. And I think they got to be another one. I forgot what they were called.
The Nereids, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
no,
right,
get in there all the time too. Yeah.
Allison, you want to lead the way with the page of swords, please?
Yes, I will. Janelle, I wanted to say I appreciated that insight on everything you've contributed so far. So thank you. I don't know if you had more
Thanks.
to talk about before your kitties came in.
No, that was good timing.
But I appreciate the divinatory insight. And also, Jeriel, that pose of the feet kind of is applicable here in the page of swords as well. It's like they're taking a step in the direction of. And they seem to be taking a step in the direction of their element, but page of swords is the one guy who isn't looking at his instrument. He's not looking at the object of the suit. He's looking behind him, like maybe there's some danger. So I think with a page of swords, we definitely see all the air, there's birds, there's wind, there's a very, he's this giant on the dunes. It looks sandy, but then that's not water in the background. That's mountains, or it's mountains and water, and it's blue and it's blowing. And so the page of swords in a divinatory way, if this were to come up for me in the, I always watch out for this guy. He seems, there's something like a spy. He's typically the spy, I think, in the deck. He's the advisor. He's the guy who whispers in the ear of the king. He's the guy who gets information and communicates it. So he's a quiet gatherer of intelligence, shall we say, and that's that mental function of the sword. If this came up in the conclusion or the summary part of a reading, I would say that there is some caution that you may want to have here. There's some, you may want to think about what's going on. Let me see if this is in the summary. Then I think this whole thing that we would be reading. Okay, so this, if that were the summary card in the reading, then the whole thing really is in development and not necessarily very public yet. There is something that you're thinking of it, but you haven't yet talked about it to other people. Maybe some plans you're keeping secret. There you are guarded, and there's a certain defensive posture here. So there's something secretive perhaps going on if this were the summary card. If this were the advice against card, I would say there might even be somebody who is stabbing you in the back or slandering in some way. That could be you acting in an unethical way, or exposing secrets, or doing something secretive that's somehow unethical or underhanded in some way. There's something less than upstanding going on here with the Page of Swords. Not across the board, but just in the positions that it might be landing in. If this were the advice to pursue, then I would say you need to be cautious about who you share information with. You may have an idea that somebody else might steal, and so you want to keep it close to the, keep your cards close to the chest, as it were. There may be somebody who would want to do you wrong if they had this information, so you need to be careful who you share it with, and you need to be cautious in how you communicate your ideas. It may also be that you're telling, if this is the advice in favor of, I would say be cautious and be careful who you share things with, something along those lines. Magnus, what might you like to add?
Thank you, Alison. I don't see so much in this card, but I see something when I look at it now that I haven't seen before, and that is the birds up in the sky is about to create a infinity symbol, the lying 8. It's looked like that, but it isn't. But if they are formed a bit more, it will be that symbol. And then I also see he is standing on something that is seeming to be alive, like lava or some fluid green in some way. I see it's like a vibration under his feet in some way. But when I look at it reader-wise, I would also think about the Ace of Swords, and I often read the Ace of Swords that there is an idea that hasn't formed yet. And here I think that idea is starting to forming and to be able to be realized. But as Alison also has said, he has to be he has to think about that he does it the right thing, so he doesn't just look at his own ego, because then that idea will not be so good in creation. I think there is something there, and I also see him in connection to the Knight of Swords we looked at the last time, that is very forward. And I think this is the stage before that stage. And also perhaps you should think of that, because then you perhaps is not going to create that state in the negative way, that you are just pushing forward. You need some thought also. And also the original thought that was there up in Keter with the Ace of Swords. That is what I see when I look at it. And then it is a bit of yellow there on the dress under, and that is Tiferet then that is showing there, and a bit of red there also, Gevura de Mars. So that is what I see. I don't see so much more than that. And Lana, do you want to go?
Sure. So I think
And Lana, could you speak up a little bit? It was really hard to hear your earlier. Yeah.
Is it better?
You. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So the way I see this card is that, well, here's the, young man, woman, young energy, and he has a sword, but he hasn't quite mastered how to use the sword, or he just wants to do it, but he still has to hold on to it with two hands, so there is no mastery of that. So again, it could be an idea or a project that is formed in the head, but not quite to be prepared to act on. And I think if I see this card, in the spread, I think, I could be probably a warning, as to act, to think twice before you act. If it came to the time of when Mercury was in retrograde, I would say maybe you could wait, or if you feel like you really need to act, make sure you read the fine print. So I think it's all I have to say, and I will pass this to Michael.
Thank you. Just a couple things that I thought were kind of interesting. Kind of what Magnus saw with the birds, the only page that doesn't have a hat. And it seems like the birds are almost like, swords being thought. Maybe the person's thought is, kind of in the clouds, and maybe, like the hats are kind of protecting the cups and pentacles, kind of like surrounding them. And we talked about how the wands is maybe shielding him from above. But the only thing that kind of is shielding the page is kind of the flighty thoughts that they're dealing with. So are they useful? I don't know. I don't even know how the birds are flying, considering if you look at the trees in the bottom left corner, it's hurricane force winds there, kind of pushing them back.
Maybe they're in Monterey,
Yeah. But again, that I think speaks to, the challenge of what's going on. There's a very flowing from left to right in this card. So, maybe the challenge is not to be swept away, kind of like the trees, or maybe even the birds are going to be, but to kind of face, like the page is doing, facing the obstacles, facing the challenge in front of them, albeit poorly, because as Lana said, they're not quite holding that sword very well. If you look at how that sword's being held. But those are my thoughts. How about Christina?
I just want to add with Allison was saying about spying. I always pick whenever I get this card in the readings, I pick up spying, and that's really interesting. Or dealing with the questionnaire is dealing with something that is being careful. You have to be careful. Also, that the candidate is standing on higher ground. You have to stand on higher ground so that you could make better decisions, as opposed to just getting in, caught up with the winds, with the emotions, with everything. And the birds up there, there are 10 of them, which in numerology, that's completion. It's 1. So whatever the candidate is dealing with, or the questionnaire is dealing with, he accomplished it or she accomplished it, and now needs to deal with what's, a lot of times it's like the opposites. You reach something, and the polar opposite, comes out. So now you have to be vigilant, in other words. So I just wanted to add that. Who hasn't? Gerald, did you go?
Not yet.
Oh, take it.
All right. Yes, I would like to echo what several people have said about this thing of, this is another example of the look before you leap kind of thing. If you notice, he's like, if he is lifting that foot to take a step, he's going to be going to our right, even though he's looking in the other direction, and he's about to step off of something. So if you don't watch where you're going, you're liable to stumble. And as to the birds, I wanted to share a couple of other things. Going to Isabel Kliegman's book, she says, "Let me mention in this context that it is revealing to trace certain symbols through a suit of the court cards. In the case of pentacles, watch the different ways in which the figures hold the pentacles. In swords, follow the birds. In wands, pay attention to the salamanders. In cups, the relationship of the figures to waters." So that takes us to the birds. And I'm going to use this as a opportunity to recommend another book for all of you. This is the Dictionary of Symbols by J.E. Serlot. And it's a general book. And here's one of the many things that it says about birds. Following a page and a half of talking about bird as a symbol, it then goes to birds plural, and it says, "Generally speaking, birds, like angels, are symbols of thought, of imagination, and of the swiftness of spiritual processes and relationships. They pertain to the element of air, and as noted in connection with the eagle, they denote height and consequently loftiness of spirit." And of course, we have our mountains of initiation back in the background. So there are those two things going on, and I would also I'm struck by the fact that unique among all of these court cards, the suit symbol actually goes off the top of the entire image. And I think, again, this is a warning about the fallibility of our thought processes. There's maybe the part of the sword that we're seeing is what he's consciously aware of, but there are more implications to it than perhaps he's thought of. Those that are up there above the picture, which is again another of those kind of warning signs that you have to be careful. And the wind blowing also is shown in his hair, which, as was pointed out before, he doesn't have a hat on like everybody else does. So the hair is kind of his hat, and that's all. He's facing a lot of headwinds, but it looks like he's about ready to move in the other direction. And those are the things that appear to me there. There's a lot of things to think about in terms of the way we deal with our thoughts and how much we control them. And of course, this being a neophyte, as the page has been noted before, he hasn't quite got the grip down for this big sword. And so maybe while you're thinking about something, you should be doing a little bit of study as well. Get a grip on what it is that you're thinking about. Who still hasn't gone here? I'm trying to look. Janelle, have you talked about this card yet?
Yeah, so far, what strikes me is how very strong the force is in this card. The wind is just so strong, and the person is barely holding onto their sword. and how the birds appear to be, I mean, they appear to be right over the character's head, but in reality, these are very big birds and they're very, very far away up in the sky. So it's like the logic is very strong to this person, but they either need to close in on what their thinking process is or grasp it a little bit firmer, bring it closer.
All right, anybody round table, or where are we at here? Round table? Final round? Or shall we then proceed on to the cups, the page of cups?
Well, Brian, did you want to comment on it or say anything about it?
Well, thank you for remembering me. I, of course, have enjoyed everything that has been brought forth. Certainly, with all the pages, you know, there's the lack of deep skill or deep insight or deep technique, you know, all of those things of being an apprentice. But yeah, with a divination, I guess I mostly see this as being someone who could easily head towards more volatility. And so it quite often shows up as kind of a warning to kind of watch one's attitude, because you know, as we know, we get into all the numbered cards of the swords. There's plenty of trouble for this fellow to get into if he takes, you know, starts going through the numbers. But that's really all I've got to add to the wonderful things already said. And unless there's any other closing remarks, we will go to cups. Okay.
Okay, so this cup has a lot of pink, which I've never been that attentive to the colors, but someone will speak to the pink, I'm sure. But we have the lotuses of the water, so that goes to Jeriel, those attributes or the titles that you were talking about from the Golden Dawn and from the Wang book are there. The lotuses are in the tunic, as well as the fish coming out of the water. This is one of those, like the Two of Cups, the guy is on a stage, and I haven't found yet that place in that Kliegman book, the Radow Kliegman book, Jeriel, where it talks about that the people are on this stage in front of it. So there's a couple cards, maybe 6, 7 cards in the deck that they're on this kind of stage separated from the backdrop. All the rest of our pages are on the landscape, but the Page of Cups isn't. But I suppose the nature of water is you can't stand on it unless that implies a whole other aspect of who you might be. So maybe it's a necessary element to believability in the card and the images. In any case, the element with the Page of Cups, this idea of surprise, novice behaviors, again, that maturity piece. If this were the overall summary card in a reading, I would say that this is a new endeavor. Maybe it's a new relationship, and you should get ready for things to grow and surprise you, because that's what they do. It may be that you're taking a less than mature emotional view of the situation, and therefore you might end up with some lessons that are that you hadn't anticipated. If this were in the advice against position, I would say don't be naive. You need to concentrate on what's around you and not get lost on the focus of what's in the card. So if it's the negative aspect of this card is the lack of maturity, perhaps an over idealism, perhaps you're looking so much at the card that you're not seeing what's around you. I'm kind of repeating myself right now. If this were in the advice positive, the advice pursue this direction, I would say this is something you should pay attention to. Whatever this little thing that has awakened in you is something that deserves your attention and should be examined and unpacked a little bit, or you should get familiar with this and go a little deeper with this. Those are some things that come to mind. Magnus, would you like to continue?
Thank you, Alison. I think this card is very royal. It's like Yeriel said that in the Tot deck or in the Wang book also they are calling the princess. And it's very royal, and the dress is also very royal. And he seems also to be very good. He seems to feel very good. And the pink color here is the mysterious color schemes of Golden Dawn that isn't so much written about, that is very interesting to seek about, because that pink color is the Tiferet in the higher color of the Golden Dawn. And I think it's in the inner circle of the color in the Sephira there. Brian, could you display the Tree of Life as the picture you had, that Dr. Heller, that from the artist, the one with all the colors in the Sephiras? Because there you see.
Sorry. 1 second.
Yes, no problem. Because there we see it in the middle of that Sephira, the pink color. And I think it would be in the king's scale then, because the color we are talking about is the queen scale. And I read a bit about them, that one, there it is, it's in the inner circle there. You see the pink color in Tiferet. And it's the, I think it's the king scale. Because the yellow is the queen scale, yes, it's the king scale. And I read about it a bit. There isn't so much written about it, but one is external and one is internal. There are pairs of them, the princess and the prince, and the king and the queen. And even if there are so much written about the Golden Dawn, there is not so much written about that. So that is some form of secret. But if you are looking at him in a reading, I think it's like you have the gift, and you know you have the gift and you need to use it in a good way, and you have all the opportunities to do that also. And also I see the belt on him, and we have seen that belt in other cards also. I think it's in some of the ones, I think 3 or 2 or something of the ones, and it's also in some of the, in one of the major arcana card, because I don't know which one it is now, but that belt is there, and he's always touching it with his right hand or fingers. So it's a lot of intuition here, I think, and it's also, it's lilac or something, like it's looking like the color of Yesod. So it's being in the intuition, I think, working from the intuition and use it in a good way to gain, but also to give. So that is what I want to say about the card. Thank you. And Michael, you can go.
Thanks. Not much to say. I do get the Page of Cups a lot when I do get it. You know, I'm always kind of looking out for something that's going to be new or novel. That fish kind of poking out of the cup. You know, be it a vision of the page, or be it, you know, something that's actually in that, is always, you know, something that maybe we haven't emotionally noticed before, or that is going to be that surprise. Interesting that now that I look at it kind of closer up, that little dot that's in the middle of their forehead, maybe it's a pearl, symbolizing, that kind of watery or kind of that shining uh, emotion that could be at the root of something, or possibly, kind of, allusion to like a third eye because of where it is on his head. But yeah, very, very interesting card, having that kind of new emotion and how to deal with it. That introspective, and I think that fish is kind of like guiding him towards that introspection. But that's really all I had. How about Lana, if you would go?
Thank you, Michael. So when I look at him, my eyes go directly into his clothing, and what I see there are the water lilies. And so what I call this card, what you see is not what you get. So I think there is a warning here, as water lilies are beautiful, popping up on in a lake or a swamp, but what is underneath, what's happening there? And it's just like reminded me of somehow our emotional responses are has to do with unconscious mind, and maybe some sort of a hidden trauma, and surprise. You may have a surprise of how someone responds to an act of. I think nothing else comes to mind. So thank you. And let's see, Christina, maybe you would like to go next.
Yeah. I'd like to add when I get this card, a lot of times it's a messenger of good news is coming with relationships, something new, maybe even childbirth or a new relationship. Water, a lot of times when I see it like this, I pick up there's the vibration, the vibration of relationships, and intuition is encouraged. So depending, yeah. So I get that too. So there's, it's a good card. It's usually a good card when I get that. Who hasn't gone?
I haven't.
I'll jump in for a minute and just remind. So I'll just repeat myself for the 15th time. Maybe they're all good cards because they all give us valuable information, even the terrible looking ones. But I see a great deal of dynamic and instability, unpredictability. Let's say if somebody, let's say if I was doing a 3-card reading for a gal who was interested in some gentleman, and this card came up, then it would almost be, well, this is not a very mature, easily distracted person, and not a very stable. The water's in the background there, not stable. The fish is perhaps going to jump out at any moment. It's quite dynamic, and so I'll pass it to Jeriel.
Thank you. I wanted to share something. Well, I'll say first some of my impressions. I find this as a really romantic kind of a card. This fellow looks very romantic, and he's holding out the cup, and the fish is emerging from that. And I think that the fish and the water lilies are both really interesting. In that book I was showing you a few minutes ago, the Dictionary of Symbols by Sir Lowe, he says that the lily is an emblem of purity, and it's often depicted standing in a vase or a jar, which is in its turn a symbol of the female principle. So then I want to also read something to you, and this is from that book by Marcus Katz and Tally Goodwin called Secrets of the Waite-Smith Tarot. And it also notes on the cover with previously unseen photography and text from Waite and Smith, and the creators of the deck. And actually, on the court cards, I think are the least informative of what these authors have to say, but they also throw in things that are really related a lot to, as we've discussed in prior sessions, the fact that Pamela Smith was very involved with a lot of the actors, particularly Shakespearean, of the day, and a lot of the images on these cards are actually patterned after those. But the most interesting thing that this book has to say about the pages, because most of them are just very, very, very terse and conclusory, but here's what she says about the fish. The choice of a fish rising from a cup is a specific symbol and presently unidentified as to its source. We believe that the term drunk as a fish may have some bearing on our page of cups. It is used in Shakespeare's Henry IV when Falstaff refers to being a soused gurnet. The word souse is the term for both dousing something in liquid and preparing a dish, and the word gurnet is a type of a fish. Indeed, this is the same play in which Falstaff refers to the prince as a sneak cup. This old phrase is lost now, but means someone who is not to be trusted, is not true to their emotions. And I think that I'll get back to that when I comment some more, but this is the rest of what she says. At a deeper level, the fish is symbolic of Christ, specifically denoting the miracle of the fishes and loaves. This miracle was also related in the Grail mysteries, where the knight Bronze brings to the table a fish that feeds many. A Greek story tells of a golden cup inside of a fish, which a fisherman discovers and finds the cup produces gold coins. Orpheus is also known as a fisher, and his lyre was said to be able to charm creatures to him. Consider also the salmon of wisdom in Celtic lore, which ate the hazelnuts that fell from the magical hazel trees surrounding a deep pool. When the fish ate one nut from all 9 trees, it gained the world's knowledge. And in psychological terms, the fish is the emblem of the deep unconscious. So here again, I think that the cautionary thing, remember we saw somebody else who had a tunic that had fish on it, and somebody make the incredible, insightful and witty comment. Was that you, Allison? Who do you remember who it was?
It was Lana, something fishy.
It was Lana, and she said there was something fishy about it. Well, I think whatever the romantic potentials are here, and they can come up in your life in very surprising ways, just as it's very surprising that this fish isn't coming out of the water, it's coming out of the cup. So it's coming out of your emotions. And once again, it's fishy. It's not necessarily to be trusted. You have to be careful. I would particularly want to know if the querent is involved in some sort of a new romantic endeavor or even aspiration for such. And that the caution in this card would have to do with that particular thing. That there are surprises out there. This may not be what you think, and also you see that the water back there is a bit turbulent. And I also should have marked it when I came across it. But one thing that I remember, Allison, from Kathleen's book, is that she calls these that have the stages separation cards, because the stage separates the character from the background. So I do see that the lilies representing purity, again, in this sense, with it being on the page, the neophyte, I think that what it's looking at there is innocence. This may be maybe a person that's not too experienced in the ways of love, but also in a general sense, not all that much in control of the emotions. So there's a lot in this card about emotional engagements, and there's a lot of caution in it as well. And is there anybody else that's left who hasn't had a chance to say anything?
Janelle?
Janelle, have you had a
Yeah,
chance?
just me. Okay. Yep. Yeah, this card. I don't know who to trust on this card. This is a very strong page card. I think the pages are messengers, and as far as messengers go, this is the only card where the messenger appears to also have a messenger that they're focused on. So you're focusing on a messenger who's focusing on what you said earlier, maybe a deeper subconscious message. So, but they're also standing on a stage that they're trying to look like they're, standing in water. So I feel like I don't know who to trust in this card. What are we looking at here? I don't know. That's my interpretation.
Any roundtable conclusions? Well, I'm sure that fish is just about to squirt that young fella in the eye. So I guess we have a reading that we could do now. And do we have any volunteers to shuffle cards?
I like reading, so I don't mind doing it. And anybody else who wants to do it, we can do it together, or I will follow in their footsteps, whatever works for you all.
So Janelle, she's going to start shuffling cards, and you will use your intuition to say, okay, that's a good shuffle. Stop shuffling. So she'll let us know when she has begun.
I need to sign off, guys, so I'll see you Wednesday.
Hi, Lana.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
And I'm not going to say goodbye when I leave, but I'm going to check out at 2.
All right. So in advance of that, thanks, Jeriel, as always, for your insight and participation. I always appreciate what you bring to these sessions very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I always really enjoy your readings, Allison. So I'm going to be disappointed not to be able to hear it.
Well, that's
Well,
wonderful that we have YouTube.
I can look at it later. That's true.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to switch cameras. What do you think? I'm going to do something like this. Hang on. See how this works.
So you guys are gonna have to let me know what to do, when to do it. What do we do?
I'm shuffling until you tell me to stop.
Okay, okay.
Janelle, did you mean to keep your camera off?
Yeah, we can turn that back on. Hi. I apologize. There's also some background noise in the room right now. Shouldn't be too
Your
loud.
children are adorable.
Thank you. They are. I think they're making origami right now.
Oh,
Okay.
Although it is quieter than at Chuck E. Cheese's, I guess.
Is that the okay to stop or should I keep going?
Yeah, you can stop. I usually don't shuffle my deck that early, so I'm
Okay.
good with that.
Would you like me to cut?
Yeah.
Which one do you want on the top?
We'll stack the middle.
And then which one on the bottom?
We'll stack the left on the bottom.
Left on the bottom? Okay.
That's a new twist. I like it.
There you go.
I always like to say there is no wrong way to shuffle cards.
There you go. And now I'm going to look for the first queen, if that's okay if we use a queen as a significator for you. There's our Queen of Pentacles. In the significator position, and now this is covering Ace of Swords. And thanks, Brian, for putting those up. And then we have also covering the Wheel of Fortune.
I'm sorry, we got off the page here. Is the Ace of Swords the covering card, and then you were going to go to the crossing card?
Crossing card is the Wheel of Fortune.
oh,
At the distant past is our Page of Pentacles. More recently, our King of Pentacles. Upcoming soon, a Knight of Wands. And further in the future, the Sun. Inside you, the Three of Cups. Around you and outside you, the Two of Pentacles. Where your attention is focused is on Temperance. And finally, as a summary card, is the Eight of Wands. And then in the advice avoid is the Fool. And the advice pursue is the Devil.
wow.
At the very bottom of the deck, some people like to look at the bottom of the deck being kind of a subconscious driver, and that's the Strength card. It brings another major to the equation. So I'm going to go ahead and look at these and give me a moment to stare at this for a moment. Well, it would seem from the amount of pentacles that we're dealing with some practical issues, probably some money issues, living situations, something along those lines. Some decision making and perhaps some investment or some gambling involved, or some thing that is needing
Would
to.
it be helpful if I gave you a little bit of insight, or no?
Oh, we like to work in the dark.
Just checking.
If there's a particular thing, I'm happy to do it. Otherwise, I'm just going to let the intuition flow and hope that it does land for you. You can make the connections and share those with us after. We're going to give each person kind of a pass at making some interpretation here, and then you can let us know how on or off we are, or give it some more depth, if that's okay with you. So this person at the middle of it is our Queen of Pentacles, and she is in charge of keeping everybody fed. She's in charge of keeping everybody housed and happy, and things done on time. Maybe even, you might be even considering having another baby. I don't know. There's something going on that has to do with the real world, and there's a decision to be made. And there isn't a lot of information to be had, or there's conflicting information, so that this wheel of fortune in play, this change in play, this movement in play is a little scary, because you don't know exactly where to land that sword and make the decision. It's kind of like the on Wheel of Fortune, like the game show, and it just doesn't, you don't know where it's going to stop yet, and you can make it stop, but you want to make sure it stops in the right place, so that you can ensure the greatest good for the most amount of people, for your family, for yourself. At the bottom of it is this beginning of the enterprise, and it looks like it has been successful, because as you come more recently into the past, the role of the beginner with the money, or the beginner with the business, is now someone who's in charge of quite a bit more. And so you have this grouping of the Queen and the King and the Page of Pentacles all together with the sword and the Wheel of Fortune. So it seems like there's a lot of kind of money in play, or earthly things in play. And again, that responsibility of administering it, being the king, and being able to shepherd that money and make it grow for the benefit of all concerned is a big concern, and that aspect of authority over the money is now coming up in the future, is this new idea of what you could do. And what might you do? Might you move? Might you retire? I mean, there's this sun up at the top, and so is there some possibility of achieving a freedom with this wealth that you maybe hadn't considered before? So the one thing about the King of Pentacles is that he's very encumbered with the wealth. Even though he has a lot of it, there's a lot of responsibility that goes with it. And that's different from the feeling of that child on the horse with the sun. That feeling of freedom, that feeling of not needing to worry, that feeling of that your vehicle is carrying you and you don't have to even put the reins on it, and you're safe. These things seem to be in the offing, and that's a happy, happy thing. So down, looking at your what's inside you, which kind of parallels that deep past card, the Page of Pentacles, this is a huge relief. This is a happy circumstance. Who wouldn't want to be in such a place, or not? I don't know, because then what's around you is this, well, yeah, but what about that? And yeah, what about this? And so even though it's a happy position perhaps to be in, how you manage these things and how you keep those ships afloat, and how you handle all this stuff that's coming your way, looking at that outcome card, that Eight of Wands there. Overall, there's just quite a lot that's coming through, and that needs to be attended to, that you need to organize and make sure goes well, that it doesn't knock you on the head, but rather you're able to catch it and do something with it. And you, in your viewpoint, as you look at this, you believe that you can do this in a balanced way. You want to do this in a balanced way, and this wealth of opportunity that exists for you, and this new chance that exists for you, you want to make sure that you do this in a way that is virtuous. And what's interesting is when we get to the advice card in terms of the direction that you might take and the decision that you might take, the advice that it's giving you is actually to take on the more materialistic or the more, and this might be just saying, listen, have a sense of humor about this whole thing. It's not the end of the world, and it might be just a temporary situation. So it may be about just having a laugh at what's going on. But I think that what I'm seeing in this is that the Fool card is telling you not to just do it to do it, and maybe so you may be confronted that this idea that might be coming up for you might seem really interesting, and it might, I don't know, I'm going to ask for the help of some folks on this one. And Janelle, you may already have some insight into this, knowing what we're talking about in terms of the advice here. But the devil is saying to take on the challenges of this materialistic concern. Take on the business, take the job, go for, even though it's going to seem like it's holding you to the ground, it might be the thing to do at this point, rather than being kind of airy and foolish or carefree. So this is telling you to take on the cares of the world, and don't act like the cares of the world aren't going to affect you. And your freedom perhaps can exist. This Sun card, you can sustain a feeling of internal freedom even as you are taking on, perhaps temporarily, the chains of this job or this compromiso in Spanish, this obligation or this commitment that you're taking on. So those are some things that come to mind. Magnus and Christina are often quite insightful, and maybe they have some things to add, as of course do other people, but I wanted to invite them to jump in.
I have looked at those cards for some time now, and I feel it's an idea there, the Ace of Swords, that you want to do, or you think there is a way to do something, but there is also a reality that is not in the way, but in the flow, I would say. It's the Wheel of Fortune there as the crossing card. And still you want to do it, and it's about materialistical things or money or what it is, because it's pentacles there. And in the distant past, you have had that idea, and you have had that money or that resources, but you haven't thought about them being enough. But now it's the King of Pentacles there. You seem to be satisfied that you have what you need to start something. Still, there could be a bit of hesitation in some way, but still it's right to do something. And now in the recent future, the Knight of Wands there is telling you to use the intuition to find a way in this, because you have what it needs to do it. And then the Sun up there for the distant future, it will be good. But then I will go on to the Devil there as the card that is advising you. It will be good, but you need a foundation, and you must accept that foundation, because that foundation could do like you have to follow some rules or something that isn't as free as you want it. That's the Fool up there, that is what you want, but you shouldn't do, I think, in this case. And looking at the other case, the personal and conscious there with the Three of Cups, I think that this is going to be good, because going to it with the emotions, you feel good about it, but still you are a bit hesitating because you think, is I feeling a little bit too much good because it is so much wishes in that or in this? And then I look at the two of pentacles there in the house, in your house position, and it's like there is a flow in that, but still there is no change. There is a flow, but, and I think that has to do also with the Wheel of Fortune there as the crossing card, that, okay, things is like they always has been, but still I want to do this. And then I have the Temperance up there. We have the Temperance up there in the conscious, and it is like, it's a balance, and you know it's a balance, and it's good, and you learn a lot of being in that balance, but still you want to go a bit further. And I am looking at the crown in the back of that Temperance card. At the end of the path there is a castle or a crown or something, and I think that is what you want to achieve. And it's a lot of emotions in it and thoughts also with the Eight of Wands there, but still this is a good thing to do, but you have to accept a foundation. You have to be in a foundation, and that foundation could be a little bit more harsh than you think you want, but you should do it. That is what I want to say. Thank you.
I just want to add, it sounds like that's like everything's on target from what I'm picking up. Also, the the decision that you're making, it's I pick up you're scared. There's some fear in there, but you know you can do it. The last, and it's going to come out good. You're the final card with the sun, and you know it's going to come out good. Just if you don't know, the card is just reminding you, yeah, it's already done. It's a done deal. You got it. And when you finally do make that step, if you haven't already made it, it's already moving fast with the Nine of Pentacles. The change is going to go so fast, and it's going to be a little scary because it is going fast. You're going to have to take that chance. And you know, a lot of times when it starts off, it doesn't look good. We sometimes look at the negatives, and I like what Allison was pointing out, where keep your sense of humor with it, because that you can laugh at. What just popped into my head. Did you see that movie, The Man That Would Be King, with Sean Connery? Have you guys seen that one?
Long time ago.
There's a scene where they're trapped. They're trapped underneath this avalanche, and they think that this is doomsday for them. And then they start talking, instead of giving up and crying and all this, they start reminiscing on all the happy days they had. With their laughter, the avalanche falls down again and offers a bridge for them to walk through, so they get out of their predicament. So this is the perfect card to remind you that if things look really bad after you've moved on with your adventure, I pick up an adventure for you, that use that laughter and keep that image of the sun, because that's what's going to keep you knowing. You can't just believe it. You can't just think, yeah, well, I hope so. You have to have it. So see it as you have it already. And that's what I want to add with that.
I'll jump in here for just a moment, because the devil card is just such an interesting character and situation. Really, it's more of a situation than anything else. Because we're quite committed here, and it can feel quite burdensome. It can feel like it's difficult to get free of. So I think that the advice here is to set aside your fear of losing your freedom that we saw in the Fool card, and move towards the commitment. It's not going to be as impossible to get out of as we feel when we're in this situation. This is so often in divinations, in spreads, the devil represents a feeling trapped, but as we always love to point out, those chains are a little loose around the neck. They can be slipped out of. It just doesn't feel like we've got the ability to, or we're just going to have to really wait for an opportunity. But I mean, it is a commitment, because these two characters are attached to a great commitment, and but there's just such a wonderful pair of opposites, having the devil card on the right and the Fool card on the left, because it's I think the advice is urging you to not put your freedom and your the total freedom as the high priority. There's actually would appear to be something quite worth making a commitment for, and that's really all I've got.
Freedom. Yeah, I was just going to say, because that sun in the future tells you that joyfulness, that feeling of freedom is going to be with you anyway, even if it wasn't precipitated by jumping off the mountain, by a feeling of that I can do whatever I want. You're still going to have this feeling of joy and this feeling of internal freedom, even while you might be working the gig or managing the family or taking on this business or whatever this material commitment thing is that you would be moving toward.
Well, is it about time to hear from the victim? I mean, the readee, and because before you go, Janelle, I would like to say that we really do enjoy just working from the cards and our intuition. And for me, I like to cite the example of somebody that I used to do readings for, but I knew them too well, and the readings got to be too similar, and it was just there was nothing new coming forth, and it was almost like everything that I knew about her was almost an impediment, and I actually stopped doing readings for her, because it was I was too familiar. But you could familiarize us a little bit with any questions or comments.
I'm interested in if Mike wants to put in a word, because I actually haven't even told him about this. He has no idea.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't want to delve too much into what I know about your past or anything like that.
You have no idea. Just go for it.
I have no idea.
Oh, we want to hear that.
Yeah, maybe it does have to do with possibly a new place that you guys are going to be stationed, or if you're going to stay in the same place. Maybe Kyle is Janelle's husband. He's in the military, so that's what I talk about when I talk about station. So it could be that maybe it isn't the right idea to do the kind of newness or maybe completely out of the blue, like the Fool is on the left. Maybe it is something that requires more structure, like the devil being that kind of lower nature. Maybe something that is more materially successful is the way to go. But it seems like whatever's going is, this isn't something that is coming up new. It's something that, with the Knight and the Eight of Wands, is something that has been thought about and willed about, and it's now ready kind of to move forward and push you. We can see internally in that environment with the Two of Pentacles that it's this juggling that we're going back and forth. Maybe it's a debate in the household about what we should do. And I think, the devil makes it clearly we should go towards the path that seems like, it's the more base path or the more lower path, but it's definitely going to be well. But yeah, embracing the change with that temperance, having that be in your conscious. You're ready to, be changed from something to something else. And yeah, with the sun, we're going to see success there. So again, I have no idea what's going on. So that's my best interpretation of what's going on. So anyway.
Thank
go ahead.
you. Thank you, everybody. This was so much fun. Oh,
But
man.
you got to give us the payoff of what's
Okay.
going on.
All right. I've been hastily scribbling down notes, so I'm going to try really hard to keep the flow going. So my husband and I moved to Washington State with our family, and we bought a house last year. So it was a big move for us, our first house. Moved in, living it here, trying to establish ourselves and everything. And I haven't seen him in a while because he's on deployment, but before he went on deployment, we kind of had this light discussion. And Mike really didn't call this, although he did call it, because you would have had no idea. I haven't talked to you in a couple years.
Oh
So
yeah,
you would have had no idea this would have been the case, but indeed, my husband is looking at an overseas duty station coming up, and it's going to be a big move that we have to make by the end of this year. And we just found out, I just found out, and it's going to be in Italy, which is amazing. The Three of Cups, that's how I feel inside. I've been to Italy before and I love it, and it's always been in the back of my mind. I would love to move there and live there. But so we have like the Devil card and the King of Pentacles card. To me, that represents, and the Queen of Pentacles card, all the Pentacles card, represents where I'm at with the housing situation and just having, gained this, really great thing that we've always wanted in our lives over the past 2 years. Even though all the craziness has been going on in everyone's life, we've had a lot to celebrate. We've really enjoyed being able to, open the door to our first home together. And that's a great feeling. I also kind of feel like the King of Pentacles right now, which is what am I going to do with all of this stuff? I have so much to take care of, not just, packing, but just we're probably going to have to, do something crazy with our house. We're still paying off mortgage, but it's all moving very fast, which is, the Knight of Wands. This is something I have to take care of, not only by myself, make a lot of decisions by myself, but do it really fast. I need to get started immediately, so a lot's going on. I'm juggling a lot. Yep. Hi, Eight of Wands. It's all coming at me. But really, above all, I feel really strong. I feel really hopeful. The Temperance card, I love the Temperance card. It comes up a lot for me, to the point where I now kind of look at it as like the Jiminy Cricket on my shoulder. It's always saying hello to me. So that is something that I have in the front of my brain all the time. Just the idea of always remembering temperance and the balance of virtue, and what comes around goes around. Like I said, we've really enjoyed our time here. And when we leave to go somewhere else, I feel like we're opening up a new portal that almost didn't open up for us, but did. And in the wake of us leaving here, a portal will be opening up for the next person, let's say, who lives in our house or something like that. And I want that experience for them to be just as great of an experience that it's been for us. I want to share the joy of what we've had here, and I want to be able to do that. So when the Devil comes in, it's kind of like I have a lot of material stuff to deal with right now, but if I can get all of that ducks in a row without freaking out, I really want to pay it forward to somebody else, and so yeah.
I wonder if the Devil might mean something like, could you hang on to your house? Could you keep the house, maybe even keep the stuff in it, rent it furnished, let somebody else have literally your experience in it, and then
Correct.
Do something that indicates that you're like the owner, and you don't have to give. So like, you don't have to jump off the cliff and go with zero to Italy.
Correct.
You can
Yes.
keep what you have and go there. So how might you be able to do that? And so there's two keywords I wanted to share that were in the cat's books. Let me just grab the one. And the one keyword for temperance is, I believe, assessment, which seems like that's exactly what you're in the middle of right now, is trying to assess what it is that you're doing. 14 is temperance, right? Yeah, assessment. Assess the situation in a balanced manner is helpful, and that's always forefront for you. And then, just out of curiosity, this is a little it's a little booklet that Marcus Katz and Tali Goodwin did. It's new. It's a cheapo book. And it basically, what they did is they took social media platforms and they did an NLP process. And so they said everything, okay, so what is this card not? It's not this, it's not that, it's not this, it's not that, because that's, in that way you're going to ultimately distill what it is by defining what it isn't. And so that was the process by which they arrived at these various keynotes. In terms of the Fool, the keynote word that they're using for the Fool, they put it at the end, is frivolity. So avoid frivolity. Certainly this is a massive thing. You're not going to be being frivolous. And then the Devil, just out of curiosity with these words, there's obviously so much more within these things. The Devil card is withholding, which is interesting, that the recommendation in this case is to perhaps be withholding. So I'm wondering, could you perhaps pay it forward while still getting top dollar? Could you, how might you retain the good things that you have been able to achieve so far while you still go on this big adventure, which was so well identified by Christina? So this idea of custodian of your current resources while still going off on this grand adventure that is going to be so very joyful with the sun there, while still not throwing away the baby with the bathwater, so to speak, as the Fool might have you do, hanging on to the things that make material life, I mean, the things that we tend to strive for. So even though the Devil is a very foreboding card, it often represents marriage, it represents employment, it represents the bills that we have to pay. But I mean, I'd rather have those than be homeless. And so some of those things are necessary in the world, and mastering them then is that Capricorn figure who is above that couple. So the hard work of Capricorn, the striving of Capricorn, probably you're going to be up a lot at night, packing and just taking care of business as you get ready for this big thing. So just keep in mind that this is all, it's in the service of work and attainment, not in the service of some, evil deed. So just think of the Devil in those terms, as I'm sure you have enough awareness to do that, but I just wanted to throw those things out.
I have a question. The Ace of Swords position and the Two of Pentacles position. What were those positions again?
Crossing and covering and crossing. Brian, give her your sailing analogy with that, would you?
Yes, the crossing card does not necessarily have to be as adversarial as many people like to assume. That's been kind of traditional for it to be considered adversarial, but those I like to, I see them as being two currently active influences. Like, imagine a little sailboat on a swift but navigable river, where you would be dealing with two forces. You would be dealing with the current and with the wind, and neither one is to automatically be cursed, but those are kind of the two active elements, and they do make a nice contrast of sort of the Ace of Swords as being very much of an established thought process, established idea. The beginning we'll get into lots of trouble with the numbered cards, but at the Ace we're very, very much secure in our knowledge, whereas as we heard before with the Wheel of Fortune, everything is in flux, and you hope that it's going to land in the right spot there. So
the Ace of Swords is in, you said, the crossing position?
No, this is crossing here.
Okay.
And that's looks a bit, horizontal, the horizontal beam of a cross. So covering, this is covering because
Covered.
it's on top of the
Oh.
queen,
Covering.
and
And what was the name of the position for the two of pentacles?
well, that has been called the household, but I like to joke that it doesn't mean whether there are dishes piling up in the sink, but it's really the world that you live in, that you experience through your senses. So it's kind of the world through your senses, and this is one of the more practical positions in terms of your experience of what you are experiencing on the
Did I mention
outside.
my husband's in the Navy?
Right. Exactly. That's wonderful. Wonderful. And then he's also having to deal with both of these things because he's in the one place and he has to deal with this other thing. The decision is between the two of you to make. He has to be on the boat while you're doing a lot of the stuff here on land. And so there you are on that stage on land, trying to, keep everything in play and keep it from dropping. And
I see you dancing.
yes, indeed.
Well, it certainly appears to be a big dance between two directions to take,
Right.
because we see those opposites, very opposite with the fool and the devil, and all the action and the various ways that it could go. The wheel of fortune being opportunistic, and so I definitely see kind of juggling decisions in your world as the two.
I also see the two of pentacles here in the house position there in your house in connection to the wheel of fortune, because looking at the wheel of fortune as a crossing card there, I said it when I looked at the card already, that there is some vibration there that is disturbing, or that there is not so good combination with the idea, the ace of sword there. But then when we are looking at the two of pentacles there, we see also that you can manage the situation, the flow there from the crossing card in the house. You can manage that. That's, I also think, what Alison said, you could perhaps keep the house and still have the economy in some form of balance, because you could rent it out or something.
The key word in that little book for that 8 is management.
The 8 of Wands
Yes.
is management. Is that what you said?
Management. Yeah.
Management. Okay. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot.
then
It's a lot of ideas to process and to manage. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that 2 of Pentacles is organization. So it's all on you to get this together. So it's a big thing for you to take on. And I think that that's the devil, is you taking this on. It's a lot of work to move house across a country with kids and with everything. And he's working and he's elsewhere. He's on a ship somewhere. So this is all on you. So, but it's telling you, yeah, why not? Because look how joyful it is for you. It's like a dream come true. And then you're probably going to be, you won't have to work when you're there. Probably you're going to have a chance to like bop around Italy. It sounds pretty nice. But it's going to take some work to get there.
Once I'm there, I feel, it'll all be good. But it's going to be a little bit of managed chaos until we get there. That's all.
For sure. For sure. And then how much do you really want to carry with you? That's a decision you're going to need to make. So that might be something, I don't know, that just came to mind. I don't know. How much do you want to schlep from here to there, or do you want there to be all new? How much are you carrying of your current burden to there? Maybe you leave it behind to come back to, or for somebody else to enjoy that pay it forward thing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about the shipping container thing. You have to decide on that.
I also think the fool there is in the position for the not advice. I think you shouldn't give up everything. You should keep what you have, yes, but still you shouldn't carry it over, like you were saying, Alison. how much do you want to keep? You should keep it where you have it now. You shouldn't go with it. It should be left so you have it when you get back.
So it sounds like she is aware of everything that the cards have said. Is there, Janelle, can you share, are there any insights particularly jumping out at you from this whole process?
I'm going to share that bottom card again, just as a reminder.
Yeah.
The bottom card? Wait,
It was just at the bottom of the deck.
bottom card again. I didn't write that down. You mentioned the bottom card was a.
No, I considered maybe a subconscious driver or whatever. When we cut the cards, one was going to be on the top and one was going to be on the bottom. And that strength card just tells you that you're coming from a strong position. And I think that you have the energy and wherewithal to figure out all these details and all this logistical stuff. It can seem so daunting, but maybe you just set aside an hour and a half a day to deal with that stuff, until the big push. But until then, you're just going to have to take care of the paperwork, deal with the stuff, do the school, all those kinds of things, that big giant checklist that you're going to have to go through. Set aside some time to be able to address it. And that's also kind of this, you're going to be dealing with a move and your regular day-to-day life. It's all good.
This is a really awesome read. Thank you, you guys. This is actually really.
I'm excited for you. Congratulations. We're going to see you on House Hunters International. Har, har, har.
So I think we're finished for today. I do want to share something with you before we sign off, but I think we've pretty well covered the reading. Does everybody agree or anybody disagree?
I just want to say I have a board meeting this Wednesday, so I won't be here, but I'll be here next Saturday.
We will